everybody, welcome to the 60th Eden Fractal meeting. Today is Wednesday, July 26th. We're here at 15:30 UTC as we meet every week. Here with Eyeke and Rosmari and Noam and Space Ranger Joe and Lisa and Duane and Tadas. We have a very exciting meeting and episode here, so thanks everybody for joining and thanks everybody for watching. We're going to get into breakout rooms in a couple minutes, so I'm just going to maybe just jump into a real quick presentation first, and then open it up. We were just talking about exciting stuff with the upcoming open mic night that Eyeke has been planning with us, and also some really innovative new social games that Noam's been thinking about, and all sorts of other stuff. But anyway, we can get back into that. We have a topic on the agenda today that's proposed by Tadas, but first I'll share with you a little bit of a recap of what's been going on in recent weeks. So welcome everybody to Eden Fractal. Once again, you can see edenfractal.com/welcome to learn more about this, and you can see Rosemary's message inviting everybody to join. Encourage everybody to join and invite your friends. It's very, very exciting what we're doing the second year of Eden Fractal, and I'm stoked to be here with y'all. And yeah, so there's a Zoom room, and we also have the new RSVP link. I don't know if I announced this last week actually, but loom.ma/Eden Fractal. This is now a new link where you can RSVP and get weekly reminders sent to your email for Eden Fractal events. I encourage everybody to do that so you don't forget about it. And then we also got the group chat, of course, t.me/edenfractal and edenfractal.com, where you can learn more about our community and the people and the games and the shows and tools we build. There's also a lot of videos we've been releasing lately at edenfractal.com/videos. 2 weeks ago, we had a video about collaborating with Eden on EOS and growing Eden, inspired by Duane. Duane's topic, and then we talked about natural cooperation and public goods questions. The video for last week hasn't been quite released yet. You can check out the Eden Creators YouTube channel in addition to edenfractal.com/videos. Check that out. There's some new videos. Rosmari released a flower time episode, which is really cool. And then, yeah, last week we talked about the future of cagendas. This video will be out soon. And there's more details about this at edencreators.com/59 for now. That was a great topic about what we're going to discuss pretty soon. So cagendas is the social coordination game that we play to help communities create agendas and choose discussion topics and make decisions together. And on this week, there's been a topic proposal by Tadas. So Tadas said that he's created something new called respect trees, and it looks really interesting. You can see the topic proposal here about how respect trees are primitive that can help people organize thoughts and help keep track of priorities and topics and goals and so forth. We can read the whole thing and hear much more from Tadas pretty soon after we get into breakout rooms. There's also a Notion page here where it talks more about the benefits of respect trees or potential use cases, as well as the way it works. And there's a pictorial example. There's a graphic example where you can see like a tree of things that can be decided by communities with respect and so forth. So that's something we'll get to in a little bit after we go into the breakout rooms. This is from Tadas, which, by the way, I have the Creator Talk Show episode with him, and you can learn more about the Eden plus Fractal game here. There's also innovations from Tadas, so I want to just give a quick shout out there. I had a meeting with Tadas over this week, and we recorded an episode also talking about the respect trees. I think I'm releasing as a discussing Eden Fractal stuff episode, so there'll be more details then as well. But with that, we're a minute past the time for the breakout rooms. Welcome, Perry. Thank you for joining. And so I suppose we can get into the breakout rooms. If anyone wants to say hello or say anything, then we'd be happy to hear from you.
Hello.
Hey, Joe. Yo, Duane. All right, breakout rooms are open, and hope that everybody has an awesome time.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Duane. Hey, Lisa.
Hey.
How you doing?
Did you not do this room on purpose? Come on.
It's just the luck of the draw.
Every time I say that, it's always mind-blowing. It just shows the power of random. It actually doesn't always feel random.
Well, and the power of amazing people in the community. And the community is still relatively small. There's only, I think, 10 people here, so the other room is has a bunch of amazing people as well. Would anybody like to share what they've been working on first?
Sure, I can go.
Cool. Thanks, Duane.
Good. It's been a little bit less work than I'd like on Eden and Alien Worlds this week. Just had a few local things come up. So the terrestrial things that sometimes need some attention. Moving around as far as like vehicles getting fixed, helping people out. So really nice. Just I was able to help a community that's very kind of pivotal in this area, which is really nice. So yeah, I kind of enjoy these days just going with the flow. I usually am a big planner. But yeah, just meeting the right people, getting in touch with the right people and making the connections. So it feels nice when the universe is responding to taking action outside of your normal routine. So, but in doing that, my normal routine suffered a bit. So I'm fine with being kind of last on the list this week because I'm excited to follow in Eric and Lisa's leads to get a little bit more active in our Eyeke DAO. Looking at and want to get everyone into Hypha DAO. So that was my goal for this week, and it's a little bit behind. So I guess I'm more stating what I'll be telling you what I'll be doing for next week. So I do have a busy Friday. I'm going to be somewhere with a little bit less internet. So I'm going to make sure I've got some good internet for the open mic and set aside time for that. And then Eric will be answering your questions and spend some time today as far as like prizes and NFTs and stuff like that. So that's about it, I guess, specific to Eden. I was a delegate for the new Eden, so participating in that a little bit, and yeah, keep up to date and voted on the respect tree. But yeah, that's about it. So hopefully going to carve out a little bit more time this next week. But super exciting meeting other people in these communities that are knowledgeable about decentralization, blockchain, and are asking the right questions about governance. So it's usually something that people are not usually asking me, right? It's usually something you're trying to explain and really, elevator pitch and make, fun and try and explain how we're bringing people along with games to kind of, start coming to consensus. So when I'm seeing like specific needs in communities, and maybe I'll elaborate just 1 second. And in Costa Rica, there's a lot of like-minded gringos that come here and have started intentional communities. And we're in double digits. We're in like 20 or 30 communities. So had the chance to meet people and hear the lessons learned of what has not worked from a top-down centralized approach when someone comes in and thinks they know how to organize people, and this, the fallout and disasters afterwards. So, it shows me that there's a new mission here for myself to visit all of these, offer some free consulting, and offer a different type of consensus mechanism, because this is people's lives that are forced now to live together that are having a really difficult time. And it's the split between masculine and feminine, split between, controller and peons, and people being, thinking they're coming here to live in paradise, to come, cohabitate and create community. And a lot of it's just left with trauma and hurt. So I see there's some definite needs for cooperation and consensus. So I'll leave it at that. Anybody would like to go next? If not, I've got Dan in my left top corner. Danny, are you up for going next?
I think I'm up for it. If anybody else wants to go next, then feel free. I'm also just getting my thoughts organized, but I'm happy to go if
All right, I can go while you're preparing your presentation.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
So
Eric.
focus was on moving forward for events that help educate people on governance, and also moving forward on governance certifications. So of course, open mic night, we did polls, talked to people, that people like the 2-hour window. So we went from 17 to 19, talked to Dan about registration, had a conversation with Vlad about voting tools. He wants to know how many people be voting, tough to tell. Went and asked the design committee about the graphics for Lisa's coffee shop. And of course, talking to Duane now about the NFT promotions, what we can do for people showing up, attending, or winning, or what those are going to be. Moved a little bit further on the governance panel live stream. So reached out to some potential people on that. We assigned some people roles. I also, if you look at the governance page, did some governance topics, put in their proposed topics, did some brainstorming and talked to people about what topics people want on governance, and came up with some. So you can see that on the Eyeke community chat. We also started talking about who should be in Fractal Palooza. So Duane, if you want to invite Haifa, you're providing more information on that, but who's that? I also talked to people and collect what they thought a governance facilitator should be able to do, and put some things on that. So I compiled them, put that in the governance committee chat, and looking for anybody to add any things to that. Then the idea is to come up with, how do we play games to teach people that curriculum to become a certified governance facilitator. In the real world, I am getting very close of submitting my document for approval to move forward with my research. So I've been really deep in the final touches of that, with tables and documents and resources. The other thing I've done is I've started thinking bigger. The reason why I went with art community is because I'm really interested in the community development. So I met with our local planning committee, and I also met with our county supervisor, our state senator, our state assembly person's office. So I met with them to talk. I didn't talk about fractals. I talked about coordinating multiple people and agencies for the purpose. I went with the area of homelessness and housing, because that's a big issue of theirs, and talked about an open platform, and they've all asked for further discussion. So that went well. So that's kind of moving things more into the real world. And Dan, are you ready with your presentation now?
Yes, I'm ready now. I think so. Thanks so much. I'm just also, Jorge is trying to join, so I'm just trying to get him assigned. Okay, cool. Jorge is going to room 2, and yeah, I can go ahead. I'm probably missing out some things, but there's lots of different things I've been working on over the past week or so, and lots of things that are coming to form, but maybe I'll just show, I have a little presentation here and then I'll riff from it. First thing I'll show is the fractalian worlds that I've been doing, and I've been thinking a lot about fractalian worlds. I proposed this at the Alien Worlds Fractal meeting that we had on Monday, and made kind of offer. Also, Duane, I wanted to talk with you more about that at some point. We discussed this at the leadership. But yeah, basically, this is just the first thing that came to mind that I think is really cool, because I was just thinking about yesterday in terms of how Lisa's been doing all this amazing outreach with different communities in alien worlds, and Pascal had some questions about what's the difference between fractalian worlds and alien worlds fractal and stuff like that. But this is just kind of starting to bring ideas of a vision of like creating a metaverse fractalian worlds where all these fractals can cooperate, and alien worlds fractal is kind of like leading the way for all these different worlds and fractalian worlds. And so I made the art for this, and I wrote and worked on this a lot with Rosmari. I've been working with Rosmari quite a lot over the past week and for longer, but we had a consortium top proposal where I hosted the meeting, and then proposed, because we only did like a 6-week agreement basically, and we're not sure what will be the next steps. So I kind of curated the work that we've done, or Vlad's proposal, and like the general overview here about what we're doing. For anybody who's not familiar, this is the fractal meetings that we've been doing in Alien Worlds. Duane used to host them, and there's a page, edencreators.com/alien worlds fractal. Actually, Duane, Rosmari and I were just listening to the interview that you, me, and Patrick did, that Patrick invited us onto, and so it was really awesome hearing your thoughts again there, and very interested to hear your thoughts about the future of Alien Worlds Fractal and Fractalian Worlds and stuff. But yeah, I think people watching are probably familiar with this, and people who are here are certainly familiar with this, but just wanted to provide a bit more context there. So we did that. We started to summarize some of the work they've been doing for Alien Worlds and Fractalian Worlds and stuff, and then like talking about just next steps so we can keep it going in some way, and put together kind of like a first idea of an offer. Also started to update this afterwards with lots of new ideas about the next steps as well after having that conversation. Thanks so much, Lisa and Eric, for all the feedback there, as well as Rosmari working on this. And we have lots of ideas working on a proposal, looked into getting funding from like G hubs and different planets, and also have been following just funding sources in general. Like, for example, this week saw that Meta in the Fractally chat, Meta had done a big like experiment with improving consensus mechanisms. So lots of stuff that I'm not sharing in the presentation, but Fractalian World is like super exciting, and I'm seeing it in a new way. So wanted to share that first. I've also been working on another episode of Fractal Apple with Rosmari. This was some art. We've been experimenting with some of the art generation things, and this is still a draft. We're not totally done with it. We're probably going to play some music and record it, and then cover a variety of topics that are started to cover here, such as Rosmari joining as Chief Marketing Officer in Eden Creators, and our work together so far. And I think I might do like a creator talk podcast, like I mentioned that before, with Rosmari as a second guest, and then looking forward to doing more of these podcasts with more people, perhaps everybody in this room at some point soon, if you're up for it. So we're going to talk about that, and I think also I'm going to launch this Defs series as well more. We did one episode with Vlad a couple months ago, if you remember. But I think I'm going to release this episode as well for the one I did with Tadas. I had a conversation with Tadas with the respect trees, and planning out to release that as a new episode. DEF stands for Discussing Eden Fractal Stuff. So it's a show that's kind of all about Eden Fractal. So planning to launch that, and kind of doing 3 shows at once here. Fractal Apple, discussing Eden Fractal stuff, where we kind of give an update, as well as like a Creator Talk interview with Rosmari, who joined Eden Creators and Eden Fractal and all the great stuff she's been up to. I also helped Rosmari and spoke on the Fireside Chat. So Rosmari had a great idea to speak in the Fireside Chat with the new community stories, and we collaborated to figure out how to best announce her working with Eden Creators and stuff. And we also worked with Douglas Gudasol. Rosmari will say a lot more about that, but she led the initiative, but I supported it and spoke on the Fireside Chat. And then I promoted Eden Fractal again at the end. I invited everybody to join and shared the Luma links that I'd previously made, as well as Eden Town Hall. And then I was speaking a lot with Rosmari about like the future of creative collaboration, like we discussed in this video, and how we want to make way more videos in the DAMs, decentralized autonomous media series, and all that stuff. And I was also working with Rosmari, helping her like figure out some of the editing tips and stuff like that for producing short video clips. I'd previously done this like 5 or 6 times. Oh, I'm getting a call from Jorge for some reason. I don't even know if I can answer that. Maybe I'll just see if I can just accept it. Hold on. Hey, Jorge, can you hear me?
Saying what?
I
He's
did.
saying, let me in.
I moved you to room 2. I'll try moving you to room 1 and then see if you can come in here. And then are you able to do it? Because it said you were in room 2 and it just said you're not joined yet. Okay. I'll message him to see if maybe he can leave and try join. Oh, there he is. There's only 3 people in this room though, or 3 people in the other room, and 6 people here though. So, hey, Jorge, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll try moving you back to the other room because there's more people in this room than that room, and yeah, I'll let me know if it's not working. So sorry for the confusion there.
Right.
Did you get like a message to go to the other room? Okay, cool. I think you made it. All right. Sorry for the confusion there, but yeah, I've been thinking for a while about how we can make presentations for each one of these like videos that we're doing and sharing, and share much more. And so Rosmari took the initiative to do it. I just helped her with like some of the video editing tips, so she could make like a cool intro video and stuff like that, with like waves and like going in stuff like that, so we can kind of set an example for more people to make amazing like content, because she shared a really great presentation last week. So yeah, I just kind of gave her some guidance on that. And then I was also thinking a lot about this new AI tools that can help us operate more efficiently. So for example, I was trying out Midjouney and some tools like that for the art here, and then there's this one called Runway for video editing that seems very powerful too. So I've been doing a lot of stuff like that. There's also more that I probably could have brought up with more time, but I met with Mo from the E90 as chief delegate yesterday, and I'm planning lots of initiatives there and proposals and stuff, as well as all throughout. Lots of stuff going on, but I'll leave it there, and then I can pass it on to Lisa or Rosmari. Perhaps see Rosmari's on camera, so maybe I'll pass it on to Rosmari first.
And you saw that Descript email or message I sent you?
Yes, and I also messaged you back about that, and also about working together for fundraising initiatives and stuff like that as well. So I've looked into it, and Rosemary actually showed me that a few months ago when I tried it, and there's one issue that I currently have with it, but once I get that figured out, then I can use it more, and it's called sequences. But yeah, we can discuss that more later, and I appreciate you sending that. Rosemary or Lisa, would either of you like to go next?
I can go.
Go
Or
ahead.
yes,
No,
okay.
I was going to suggest you go. Go ahead.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll try to be quick. Dan covered a lot of the things that we've been working together on. So maybe I would maybe I'll just add to it. So I was as well. I'm trying to get into the habit of starting to screen share so that I can present better what I'm working on, because it makes it more visual. So this is one thing that I'm also working on. Okay. And as Dan mentioned, I had a really good time working, speaking on the fireside chat. Thanks, Dan, for encouraging me to do that. And it turned out really well. Dan also spoke on it, and as well as Douglas. So we kind of came as a pack, and you can see that at the latest uploaded fireside chat in 1 hour 40 minutes. Also, what I'm thinking and actually started doing is to just cut when we're talking, which is about 25 minutes in total, and produce and re-upload that in the Union Creators YouTube channel. So for that, I've been working with Dan to see how we can streamline the creation of intro and outro videos to make it seem like just a more well-defined production. And for that, we've been using the Final Cut Pro app to do so. I actually had a really good time also creating the intro and outro video for that clip, for example. It's actually the first time I did that using Final Cut Pro as an app. Previously, for Community Stories podcast, for example, I was using Canva app, which has a preset templates to choose from. And actually I was thinking that it's way hard to do it sort of manually, but really what I did here, for example, is choose a clip from Pixabay, which is copyright free, most of it, and then just layer some animations and transitions on top of it, as well as text, and make it fade out. So it's nice to produce. So I actually invite everyone to check out this this clip that I made. I call it Flower Time in Fractal 59. This is a clip that is taken from the breakout rooms last week. And I kind of cut it and put it together so that it's easier for someone that doesn't watches all the breakout rooms and all the meetings that we produce, that they can easily see the highlights of my work on a weekly basis. And it's as Dan mentioned, it's a form of encouragement for everyone to share and use the platform to share their work as we start to cut more clips and share them more widely and more accessibly that way. So much more to come on that. And I think we're thinking of using this playlist presentations to put all the future cut clips, which are shorter and nicer. And as Lisa mentioned last week, we may start doing this with just weekly articles too, or just going through articles that are hard to digest and make them easier to do so using videos and presenting key points from highlights. So those are just ideas that we started brainstorming on, just to make the content easier to come across and get more people intrigued by it. What other things we've been working on is Dan showed me how to use Midjourney, and we're experimenting with creating a bunch of art. Maybe Dan can show later for Fractal Apple, as well as in Town Hall thumbnail and in Fractal thumbnails, which both of these videos are now edited, and just the thumbnails are due to happen. So actually get inspiration from Midjourney to create a thumbnail, that's a game changer. And actually just a pro tip here that in order to get a thumbnail size for when you create a prompt, you type /imagine, you write down your prompt, and then at the end you have to put like that -- space, was it AR? I forgot it. AR.
Yeah, AR, and then like 1280
Oops.
colon 720.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can set the size of the image that comes out, because otherwise it's usually a square one, and you can also zoom in, zoom out, but well, you can zoom out to make it larger, but if you're looking to create a thumbnail, for example, or any specific size, you can include that at the end of the prompt. So that's very useful, and thanks Dan for sharing that with me too. Apart from this, I responded to some messages, for example, that one from Creamy Vanilla that was sent in the EOS Network Foundation Telegram chat, where Creamy Vanilla shared all the events that are happening on a weekly basis. And we Jorge in the other room, he responded asking if Creamy Vanilla can add in fractal meetings too, and Creamy Vanilla asked like who's owning these meetings, and we sent like a message to just provide more clarity on the meetings and asking if we in Fractal as well as in Town Hall and EOS ship meetings can be also included in this schedule that is sent out on a weekly basis. Apart from this, I'm also flying. I've been speaking for longer than 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I don't know how many, sorry. But I'm also flying out today from the US, and I'm packing and thinking about that too. Apart from this, I think I covered everything. I also attended the Fractalian Worlds meeting, and alongside Dan, we worked on the proposal for extending the meeting, because this week was the 6th week that it's been ongoing, and would like to continue, but we're at the moment still working on a proposal, and it's been really fun, like the journey, so really want to extend it. And apart from that, I think that's pretty much it. Yes.
There's also the message you sent out before the meeting to invite everybody.
Right, this one too.
Great. Thank you, Rosmari.
Hello. Hi. Sorry, I had to get myself together. So I hold on. I'm just going to, if you don't mind, not video for a second so I can look at something. I'm going to be the lowest on the list today, just letting you know ahead of time, because in spite of my 16 hours a day in the metaverse, it hasn't been a ton on Fractal this past week. So yes, I attended the Fractalian Worlds, but I have spent most of the time trying to fulfill my responsibilities as custodian and for the proposals that I'm receiving. And that has included a lot of writing and thinking and work. So I've put a sheet together of the requests that are coming in. I did get already 5 new today. There are around 90, averaging around 70,000 between now and the end of the year. And not only are we trying to track and figure out how to reward people in an order that they need, we're also in discussions with multiple people on each proposal usually. So it is overwhelming to say the least. Yet it's a great privilege to be able to do it. And I'm very grateful to the people who make it possible for me to do it. Although I have to admit, when it comes to the end of the month and the bills are due or overdue, I do remind myself that next month I need to spend more time focusing on that. And so I'm afraid I'll need to focus on commercial endeavors a bit more in the coming month. However, there are a lot of very exciting things coming up. The Interplanetarian Conference, obviously, the Lisa's Coffee Shop event, which I just saw a preview of the space, and oh my goodness, beyond my imagination, Eric's gonna freak. He's probably seen it, but I was having a chat with the designer, and so I got a peek. And
You need
anyway,
to put the registration down.
huh? Say it again.
You should
Sorry.
put those on the registration page.
Oh, nice. All right. So yeah, so super excited all about that, and trying to think of how to do my stand-up routine without sounding passive aggressive. And that's actually been a bigger challenge and cause for self-reflection than I realized. So, but several ideas for that. Thank you for the opportunity here. Yeah, and gosh, we have so many wonderful communities around us. I'm just so in awe. And whereas many times I've been worried, are we going to be able to defend a community built metaverse? And when I see what's happening, I am comforted to know that we will. There's been such extraordinary examples of resolution. And so I'm so glad to see Duane applying that on Earth in physical activities for people who don't otherwise connect to the metaverse, as Eric has been and as Joe is doing. Quite excited about that. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at there. I don't think y'all want a list of all the things I really do in life. So, I think, or in the metaverse, I think I'll just try to focus a bit on the fractal part. So encouraging more all the time, and hoping to set some up for Eyeke and Antelope. But that's aspirational more than my achievement. So more of a commercial than on my list. That's it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Lisa. As always, I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions or comments for anybody before we get into consensus? If not, we can go getting
Just so you
sense
know,
whenever.
Lisa and I talked to some non-game players about the metaverse. That's interesting as we start realizing, how do you talk to non-metaverse people?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. I know. It's like 2 new people, and one was a PR person, and I'm like, can I just hire you and we'll work out the rest later? Like, you're not going to feel comfortable understanding this. Can I just start paying you so that we can like somebody please do. Like, if you knew how much I spent on press in the past to try to get it right. Yeah, that was a funny and odd and interesting experience.
It's something we all should do. We all need to talk to non-people just to get that feedback, and that
To non-people, to non-players.
players, yeah.
Yes, and review our terminology here and again, so we know. Yeah, it's a whole crazy world. Every word means something different, and it's great to get the perspective of people as like, wait, what do? You build imaginary things, you know. But then again, all engineering and all innovation and development really is built from the imagination. It connects to hardware, right?
Yes, there was a very strong interest at the same time. So as we give people those simple things they can do to experience, like open mic night, I think those things are going to be really good for that.
And by the way, the other person has 10 universities. And so she's figuring out how we can go speak about the metaverse and engage the people in AI and engineering and all sorts of, you know, in their universities throughout Southern.
We talked about putting a metaverse on Eyeke. I mean, a metaverse university on Eyeke.
Oh, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, there you go. Bring them in, have it, or, well, and even the centers, universities are used to the centers. The Center for Governance should be relevant, but I do love more communities. You know, the more communities we connect to and engage, the more resources they bring. It's quite interesting. So it's sort of a backwards way that we would anticipate, but it does kind of work when you think about it. So, okay, on to voting.
Cool. Interesting discussion. And there are 3 people who haven't yet added their EOS accounts yet in the EF60 group. I can share the link if it'd be helpful here.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm busy talking, so I'm not looking at it.
Oh, good. Yeah, if any of you does have more comments, we do have a decent amount of time left, so we could continue with more questions and comments.
We're learning to pace ourselves.
What's that?
We're learning to pace ourselves. We know how much we can sneak in when.
All right. All about the pace and the sneaking.
Yeah. It's the secret to life.
I just pasted the link to fractalgram, and everybody gave it but Lisa so far.
I'm on it.
And there we go. All right. Shall we do level 6? Or the first place? Who do you think did the most for the Eden Fractal community this week? And it looks like I'm getting confused. I think Rosmari has consensus. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. To me, it says that Duane voted for both Rosmari and me, so it's a little bit confusing, but it sounds good.
Interesting.
Yep. Okay, cool. So Rosmari's first place. Congrats, Rosmari, and thank you very much.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Would you like to give a speech for everybody? Oh, sorry, was that Lisa?
Rosmari represents to me like that someone can come in, learn, get involved, do more and more, and take on a leadership role, which is ideally what we would like to replicate and scale, I would think.
Yep.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice and sweet of you.
Yeah, that's me sweet.
Oh, thanks.
Well,
You
yeah.
all deserve
Oh, is that?
first. You all deserve first place.
But there can be only one, and the group has chosen you, Rosmari.
Yeah, nice. Dan votes for Eric. Eric votes for Dan. Maybe the 2 of you could figure out who should get it.
I'm still trying to figure out.
I love hearing from the candidates who they think after discussion when they're in a, you know.
Yeah, well, I love what Eric is doing in general. I mean, there's so much he's doing that he mentioned in his report there.
But this week, what about this week for Fractal? Who did more for Fractal this week? Or for Eden Fractal?
That is the question. Yeah, that's the question that we're aiming to answer here. So one thing I'm wondering.
The thing Dan and I have in common is getting people to telling the story and getting people involved. Dan does it mostly through the content and communications, and I'm doing it for events. So they work, when they put Dan and I together, it's perfect. create an event and then create content and drive at people and capture it. So it
He
works
did
pretty
train
well.
Rosemary. He trained Rosemary.
That's true. Yeah. Well, you make a great combo, Eric. And I love when you get excited and enthused and start moving around your hands and
You
smiling and
like
stuff like
it.
that. It gets me pumped up, and it gets everybody pumped up too. And yeah, so I really appreciate you took the initiative with the initiative you've been taking in the Eyeke Community Council to bring like fractals and social games there this week specifically. Yeah. I'm also curious about where the art fractal is. I haven't heard an update about that much recently. I think I might have consensus. It looks like maybe somebody switched.
The reason is because we're going to a whole new level, and I've aligned with the Fallbrook Art Incorporated because they have a national list and a national response, or a much higher level. And the pause has been because they just Brenda is the new executive director, so she just started the first week of July. So I'm letting her get settled before I have another discussion with, because she's kind of like, hi, you're a director of this whole thing. Let's get going. So I've got to re-engage then. And the other one we're bringing, the Art Fractal, is the California Art Center, and the Escondido, which is also, so basically we pumped up the game high, and I've met with all those people, but we kind of put that because we need to think about it a little differently to get a higher level players involved here.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, thank you for the update, and that'll make sense. And feel free to let me know if there's anything I can help with there. It was really great joining the first. I joined the first, I guess, like 5 meetings or 6 meetings like that, and then scheduling. It was difficult to make it, but it was really cool meeting everybody there, and I'd love to help it more, and love the initiative whenever you move on to the next
Got some
level.
really valuable from there, so that was definitely worth it.
Got some really valuable feedback. You said, yep, for sure. I agree. I learned a lot from there too, and looking forward to all the writing that you're doing from there. Also, I saw Rosmari. She said she changed her vote because of the training, and I spent a lot of time training so she can perform your best. So I might have messed up the tenses there, but thanks, Rosmari. Appreciate that, and it's been a pleasure working with you and providing the training and stuff. I'm glad you appreciate it. I suppose.
And
oh, what's that, Eric?
nothing. Here we go.
Okay. And level 4, it looks like Eric has 4 to 5 consensus here. Eric voted for Lisa, everybody else voted for Eric. So we can move on to level 3.
Duane should definitely get it. He's helping people in the real world on Earth.
Help people in the alien world is also quite helpful though too, Lisa.
Well, he does that too.
That's true.
Duane's there with me the whole time. Without Duane, there's no Lisa in Alien World.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
Really?
That's how I got started.
Without Lisa, there's no
where I go
Duane in
every
Alien
week.
World. It's kind of a
Yeah.
team
Yeah,
thing.
team
Oh
thing.
no.
Yep. Yes, every major decision I've ever made in Alien World, Duane was involved in.
Wow, and without Duane and Lisa, there'd
to
be
keep
no
me
me.
inspired. Yeah, to keep me inspired, Lisa has to be there. Because if no one's asking questions, I have no answers. So I would give my vote to Lisa.
Oh no.
Well,
I just really think his communities on Earth are super influential right now, and that connection is so valuable. Like, that's worth noting. I think we just take it for granted, like he's out there doing that. But I gather there's like a lot of impact and influence of what he's talking about. We don't really get into it much, but I know it's there. I hear it from other people too.
Well, save mine till we have some action, and if some more people come into this meeting to learn, what we're doing, because I've identified a big problem, and it's just the identification stage. So
First
Just,
disagreement.
just be ready to participate in Fractal Palooza,
exactly.
because Fractal Palooza is for these real world.
Chances are I will listen to what Duane says to do in every case, just for the record.
Okay. Well, it looks like there is consensus on Lisa now.
Although I thought I'd be last. Whatever.
So,
That's
well,
wrong again. Foiled
you,
again.
you two had a pretty epic, should I say, battle or something of compliments, and I kept going back and forth in my mind about who to vote for, but clearly there's much respect and appreciation to go around here, and that's a great thing.
You know, it's fun, but imagine if there was like significant world impact to this voting. It really would be quite troublesome having to make these decisions in moments, you know, if we're dealing with like people being able to fulfill their dreams because of these votes in some communities someday. It could be really interesting. It would be, and people playing would be athletes. We're talking about athletes for some of the other games, you know, and supporting the athletes and playing. And with the rule they have to sleep, by the way. But the yeah, I think it will be grueling when the stakes are higher.
Well, it's going to be leveled off, I think, with how long-term people are in these different groups, right? So it's going to be a long-term average, right? And then those averages will have other people come in with their values in different groups and start, you know, raining down other different types of value to people just because they have respect, right? Will be pulled and enticed to you know, join other groups. So yeah, I think it's just the time, what the scope of the different programs or missions, right? So yeah, I think it all averages out. So yeah, taking it too seriously for one meeting, probably, yeah, we can't get that too attached to just one, you know, the vote every week. I think it's the average.
Yeah, good points. Well, Lisa, as you made in those posters, I guess last month about the future of social gaming, and I was thinking a lot about that phrase, future of social games, and I think there is like a great thing for like high intensity games too, where it's like more at stake and stuff. Like I agree with what Dwayne's saying, that I think in the future we want to create like there's abundance for everybody, and everybody there's not too much pressure in any meeting where everybody can go, and if they get a little bit lower level this time, then they can go the next day or the next week, and they can get a higher level and keep working at it and stuff like that. And that's a healthy and sustainable way to do it. But at the same time, though, there's like, you know, people get amped up about the World Cup or the Super Bowl or like big matches or big games, and we could do similar things here where there's like extra. Imagine if there was like a huge prize on the line, and people were like competing, giving the best presentations that they possibly could, sharing it and so forth. But if it's well aligned and well done, then that could be amazing, really amazing. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes left or so, and we have not yet selected a delegate, so perhaps we should do that now.
Who wants to be delegate?
Yeah. I could share a
I think
link.
I'm probably
You think probably what?
I'm probably about getting ready.
So right now, console 41, I believe this was the console from last week. If Tadas upgraded it, I'll double check the block explorer to make sure that Tadas updated it. But as far as I see on the link that I shared, I was elected as delegate last week. Eric was elected as delegate 2 weeks ago, and Rosmari was elected 3 weeks ago.
What about Duane?
Duane, Elisa?
Duane.
I think for this
Wanna
week,
be-
I'll wait for another week or two so that I'm more involved. Yeah, I just know I have a few, you know, terrestrial obligations, so I'll skip.
I'm worried
Lisa?
about that too. I'm worried about that too.
I can be. Can I be?
Are you yet?
I think next week I'm running out.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, this is your last
Okay.
week now, so I'd be happy to support Rosmari as delegate.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. What do you think about calling it captains rather than delegates? Do you have any thoughts about that? And first place rather than level 6? I think maybe we should make
Are they
those
flying a
changes.
spaceship?
Well, they could be flying a spaceship, but also it's like you're mentioning games and like sports, like you have captains of teams and stuff like that. It's kind of delegates, kind of like formal and stuff.
What's their role as a captain?
Same role as a delegate, basically, to essentially be there for 4 weeks to participate in the Eden plus Fractal councils and like help make decisions for the group or help voice community opinions. And then also there could be added benefits or use cases, such as in the signals games that we did, where delegates or slash captains had a higher weight in their vote for ranking things like the best speeches or the best, most fun pitches and so forth.
Are they captains or ambassadors? In other words, is their role to represent the collective, or is the role to well, I should say it the other way around. Is the role to represent a team, or is the role to represent a collective? So the captains are usually representing teams.
Mm-hmm. And
currently anyway. Could be either
yeah.
way, but theoretically, currently, like when we're talking about the captains or that, for the various games and they're going in and being the, team captain and recruiting other players and helping them onboard and train and share information. Whereas the ambassador or maybe a representative might be part of a group of people representing Eden Fractal. Now, if you have a play path and they're supposed to recruit people while they're captain, like I'm captain of group 1 and I'm recruiting people for the next 4 weeks to play with group 1 and do some extra things, that makes sense because then they show up representing those players.
Interesting. Well,
I might have thought about this too much.
What was that?
I may have thought about this too much.
No. It's a great thing to think about. It's it's designing the game. It's designing how we're going to present it to people and how people understand it. So
I mean,
words
anyone
count.
can
They matter a lot.
anything. Yeah, don't let me, limit you, because anyone can do anything basically. But at one point I did go through and pull with ChatGPT all the titles of captain, of ships, spaceships and naval ships and different things and try to understand titles. And it just is very difficult because people use it different ways. And certainly people in lore use whatever they like or are familiar with. So it really could be anything, but those are things that come to mind is are we I think a lot in general about as we create community, or not create community, as we empower communities or inspire people to create communities in various ways through play paths, how important it is to not create warring teams in the future, but teams that play and that have fun and celebrate together. Like Velis just won a Cryptia, and our player on Eyeke was super into it and having fun, but he also is building some really amazing technology for the communities. And it was okay, I can put that all aside and win a Cryptia, or and it was well, tell you what, thanks for playing. However, so that, he could have easily become a team captain and recruited a lot of other players. And in Battle Dome, Joe is playing for us on Eyeke and he's recruiting other players and people are helping him recruit players and he's growing in the rankings like that. So he's acting like a captain in that way. Right. So those are a couple of things. So anyway, food for thought, but ideally we're, supporting the other teams in the coming hundreds of years and not killing each other. The time to think of those things is now.
Yes, for sure. We want to make it peaceful and cooperative and so forth.
Call them whatever you want. But that being said, no, don't kill millions of people. But that being said, do whatever you want. I do take my role seriously, as you can tell.
Right, very, very much so. Well, Yeah, certainly thinking about it deeply. And I know it reminded me a bit of when I was listening to a lot of the early designs of Eden from Dan Larimer's team in Fractally. And they thought a lot about how to align people for public good and benefit of humanity and all sorts of stuff like that. Like that's big underlying ideas of Eden. And I just remembered
Yeah.
they had quite a few discussions about the word delegate because I think they went back and forth between representative
Yeah.
and between all sorts of different terms between it. And that's basically where the word delegate came from because when Tadas proposed Eden plus fractal, we used delegate, and delegate still might be best. But
Yeah, it might, because they're
some,
delegated to represent the
mm-hmm.
collective, right?
Yeah.
Based on that respect. There's so many fun things that they could do, and we could consider some social game experiments. For example, delegates could get ambassador points, theoretically, and go out to other communities and talk about Eden Fractal and invite people. And if those people either, show up or send someone or promote it or whatever, they could get a point and earn respect from ambassador points. So it's kind of like each word or role has a play path that could be added if that were something people wanted to take on as an experiment. Of course, every experiment takes time.
Yep. Yeah, well.
So by the way,
points.
Rose, love Final Cut Pro, one of my favorites. One of the challenges, though, in all this is how do you get multiple people cooperating and putting things together? It's tough to pass a Final Cut Pro feed around. That's why I looked at Descript when I was thinking, because I was thinking about dams, because we should probably come up with just a workflow and define what the workflow is for collaboratively creating. That would be worth a workshop for us just to sit around and say, let's make a diagram, not tool-based, but flow-based, and figure out how to do it. But I think with Descript, used to be able, when they started at least, you could share scripts, which is pretty cool because you can cut and paste it. But Final Cut Pro is great. I've done a lot of professional work on Final Cut.
Eric, could you possibly look to see if there was a proposal if Eden Fractal should give out Trillium rewards? Are you on there by chance? I'm having internet challenges.
On where? Eden.
Drive a link down posted with the surveys and get there that way, I think.
I missed part of that. Just are we talking about Eden Fractal Telegram group?
Eden Fractal Consortium. And he posted a link to a spreadsheet that has the other ones linked. So maybe you can look through there and see. I feel like I'm not doing one of my jobs if I don't ask that question. I'm not sure if it's my role as custodian, my role as Alien Worlds community member, my role as Trillium Foundation creator, hopefully, or as a player who wants more Trillium. But I'll just mention all of those for an attempt at any part of transparency.
Still not sure where I'm looking. Are we talking about the consortium page or?
Yeah, if you go to, I think if you go to the WAX consortium, you can see however you pronounce it. Vlad says however we want, so I guess we can all pronounce it differently. I'm not just used to it that way, but I'm used to writing it more. I think if you go there, you can see the different communities. So you can see the Eden Fractal community, the Fractalian Worlds, Planet Eyeke, all the different, IPF, all the different consortiums that are set up. And then you can go to the Eden Fractal one and see what's there. And then once you're on the page, you can control F for Trillium or TLM and see if it's anywhere, I think. I could be wrong.
I don't think that's been proposed. I think we discussed that, Lisa, and I think we should propose that at some point soon. And that can be a great way to showcase the IBC and all the collaborations.
So
But
I tried to put it somewhere and I don't think it actually posted when I did it. So now I'm wondering, like, is it really there? But at the moment, my internet isn't sufficient to do that. It's
wait,
disconnecting things just even being on here. So
well, yeah, Rosmari just shared the link to the Eden Consortium. Thanks for that,
there you
Rosmari.
go.
And then you can search for TLM or Trillium, but I don't think any of them are there. So maybe it was posted as a
Right.
poll somewhere
Well,
in
I
Telegram
wonder
or
if
something
I
like that.
did
But
it. Yeah, I may have done it on Fractalian Worlds, but it may not have actually turned into, like, I may not have completed the process. So yeah, but if maybe someone wants to do that.
yeah, I think that's definitely something that we should do at some point soon. I think it's a great opportunity to co-collaborate with Alien Worlds and showcase the IBC abilities and also give respect to people to bring the communities together more. I think that's great. Yeah, I had to close up the breakout rooms in a moment, so I'll start the 1 minute. I also wanted to briefly respond to a couple of things. One was Eric's point about Final Cut. So yeah, I've thought that thought, and Final Cut isn't as it's not as good for collaboration as something like Descript. I think there is a tool called Frame.io and maybe some others that allow you to collaborate on Final Cut projects. And we looked a lot into Adobe Premiere and Descript, but there were some issues with both of them that we wound up using Final Cut instead. But I'm interested in learning with those tools as well as DaVinci Resolve. I've heard all of those can be helpful for
Adobe,
collaboration.
yeah, Adobe is much harder to collaborate on because it
Okay.
doesn't have the same nonlinear editing. So when you drag and drop stuff, Adobe, you have to make more spaces and move stuff where when you move stuff in Final Cut, everything else just seamlessly moves aside. So if Rosmari gets something new for me, she can just drag it right in there and it'll balance a lot easier. If you're working on Adobe yourself, it's not so much of a problem. But if you're getting all this stuff from other people, at least I found in the past, unless it's updated, I haven't used it for a few years. It's
Hello. Hello, everybody. Good to see you, Jorge. Glad to hear that you're able to make it into the room. And hope that everybody had an excellent time in the breakout rooms. I see a couple people still getting connected. See Vlad joined us. Thanks for joining, Vlad. And we can get into the topics on the agenda today. If anybody has any comments or things you want to share, in our room, we got a bit cut off. Eric was saying stuff. We're talking about video editing, and so perhaps we can continue that conversation afterwards, Eric. We're very interested in that. I see Perry's unmuted as well. If anyone wants to jump in, or Jorge's unmuted, if anyone wants to jump in.
Our room made a resolution suggested by Perry that for the next few elections, until it actually gets fixed, we're all going to remind Dan to start the election just before the breakout rooms.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, Vlad.
Because I mean, if you start it too early, you run out of the 2-hour window, and if you have to start it just that, you don't always remember. So
I love it. You actually solved a problem. You took it into your own hands collectively. And what a team. Bravo, bravo. How do I send them respect?
Well, I can give you my EOS account number. You have it. You can send it to everybody in the room. No
You're
problem.
Right. I have to figure out how to log in. No, just kidding. I'll follow up with you.
Thankfully, everybody also gets respect from being here too, and that MSIG goes out every week, so everybody gets respect, and EOS as well. But yeah, great ideas. Thanks for that, Perry and Noam. That was something that Vlad was doing for a while, and then Vlad, he's been quite busy and other stuff's going on, so he hasn't been able to do it all the time. And I probably should just set a reminder for myself to do it each week. I have a bunch of reminders to make sure everybody can screen share and do all these other things, but I hadn't done that, so I can do that. I appreciate the reminder if I forget or something like that, but I'll just make a reminder each week so I do it.
Explain the problem that you can't start it too early, otherwise the 2-hour window becomes a problem. So
yep.
Now that we know to remind you.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you for figuring out the solution on the fly, and much respect. I suppose on that note, we can pass it over to Tadas pretty soon. I see Lisa asks, can someone build a send respect button so I can integrate in our sites and social media? That's a very interesting idea. So that's something that perhaps we can explore for another time as well. That would be super cool. And a lot of the stuff we're working on, like Pascal works with the algorithm and the fractal talks about social media. So for sure, we want to have those buttons people can give respect easily in many different contexts. But yeah, I suppose for now, I'll just share a brief presentation to introduce Tadas's proposal, or not proposal, but Tadas's topic about respect trees. Really interesting to learn about. Hey, Tadas, great to see you. And yeah, well, I guess, I don't know if Tadas, you just want to do it. If you want to share your screen and stuff like that, I already wrote it in advance and stuff. If you want, I think you should have screen sharing ability, and also, if you want, I could share anything for you. If you want, I can introduce it, but you could probably do a better job introducing it yourself, and I already gave a little intro. So do you want to take it from here, Tadas?
Yep, sure.
Cool.
I will share my screen.
That sounds great.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Good. Anyway.
Are you having some issue, Tadas?
Yeah, I'm trying to organize a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so we respect tree. Yeah, so first, what's the motivation behind this? Yeah, so for a while I thought that Eden Fractal really needs some kind of issue tracker where people could, a lot of people here obviously have great ideas about what, how Eden Fractal can be improved, what needs to be done, and so on. And we need a way to track all of these things for a lot of reasons. For example, for newcomers, it might be helpful to see what, how we can help, list of issues that we can solve. Also, this could also, if voting is integrated in that kind of app, it could help determine priority of issues. Yeah, so I also started thinking about the bounty system, but realized that I think it makes sense for an issue tracker to be decoupled, independent from the bounty system. So people from a fractal would track issues, and there would be a system, separate system, which rewards people who solve the issues. Yeah, so this Eyeke mainly focused on the issue tracker part of the system, and as I was working on this, I realized that the same structures, same kind of solution could be used to do more than just track issues. I think it could also be used to track and propose and determine priority of topics to discuss, goals, general goals to prioritize, questions to focus on, general projects to develop, stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. So basically, it would allow Eden Fractal to organize in terms of where should it focus its attention. It would also enable us to signal consensus on a solution. For example, when there is some issue and where multiple people might be presenting a solution for the same issue, Eden Fractal could use the same system to select which issue, which solution to recognize as an official one. This is not always needed, but it might be needed for example, for a front end. If someone creates a front end, it might be useful to see which front end Eden Fractal prefers. Yeah, so in this simple data structure that would achieve this, that I've been talking about, is what I call respect tree. It's basically a tree where each node would have a short name and a bunch of other attributes like IPFS link to some document, for example, where it's described more fully. And yeah, and I think it's best to just describe with an example. So how this tree structure would be used. Yeah, so first you have a root node. A root node has total weight attributes and total weight attribute and a balance table. Total weight would in this case be total respect issued by Eden Fractal, and the balance table in this case would be balance table of respect. Now we go level down, and anyone can create a child node for this root node, and then people who have respect, meaning who have balance in this root, in this balance table of a root node, they can vote on the children nodes, and they can vote on multiple children nodes, but the sum of their votes cannot exceed their balance in the parent node. Yeah, and the amount with which they vote for the children node determines the balance, their balance in the child node. And this way it can go down further. So these children nodes can have their own children, and for them, people who have voted on the parent, they can vote on the children, and this way, yeah. So what this achieves is that we can start with general questions like, what is the mission of Eden Fractal, and or what are top values of Eden Fractal, and people vote on one of these questions depending on what they think are the more important questions. And those who vote on, for example, on this question, what are top values of Eden Fractal, they can vote on children nodes. For example, one children node could be saying that fractal democracy is a top value, and then if enough people vote on it, it makes sense to create children nodes on that, which would basically be about the next thought, the next idea that would be following for that. Like, for example, it would make sense to ask what should be our current priority, and then children nodes of that question could be like to come up with a mission statement, or improve cagendas process, or improve breakout room process, create an issue tracker, spreading our current process to other communities. And yeah, so people here, people could basically be voting on a priority, where should we focus on. And yeah, and let's take some other note, like for example, improving breakout room process, and here people would be creating children node which would talk about projects that would actually achieve improvement of breakout room process. So one project could be fractalgram, and fractalgram could have children nodes which have issues, like making login process less scary, and these issues can have children nodes which has solution ideas, and solution ideas could have children nodes which are actual solutions. So it could look like a link to a specific commit which solves the issue, or a link to a solution. So yeah, so overall, I think you see that the same tree structure can be basically used to go from mission stuff, general abstract stuff like mission statement, right down to specific technical solutions. And yeah, and by voting, people would basically be voting on a path, and the path that has the most respect, or there could be multiple paths that have the most respect, and this information could be very useful for basically seeing where fractal wants to go.
Can you do this on a Git tree?
Git Tree.
Because if you're going to start doing implementations and solutions, and the Git tree is the natural place to apply this to.
By Git Tree, you mean just Git, like the version tracking
Things
system?
branch off, and there's different things that different open issues that need to be tracked, and then there's solutions to them, and the merge. Because a lot of times, even after you have an open issue and somebody fixes it, it still needs to be merged into the main line. Git has the tree already built, so we wouldn't have to build it.
Yes,
we
but
still need to assign the respect and the tokens to decide what has a priority, and then have it implemented. And
yes,
so,
yes, exactly, and that's why I think the core of this should be done in the smart contract. And also in Git, the tree is mainly used to do version tracking. The issue tracking, the issue tracking is done by GitHub, not actually Git or alternatives to GitHub. So it's actually
it would be somewhere in the Git. GitHub is just the Microsoft version. Git is the...
Yeah, the data structure might theoretically be useful, but all the Git tools, existing Git tools, they are oriented towards version tracking, at least that I'm aware of. So right now, I don't see an easy way to make existing Git solutions immediately useful to us without doing a lot of work.
Most projects that are being developed in Git, unless they're developed by one or two people that are talking to each other, have an issue tracker in the Git.
Can you share some of those projects?
I'm going to search for one.
I think perhaps while you search for that, Noam, it might be best if Tadas finishes the presentation and we say more of a high-level overview, and then we get more into the specifics with the Git.
Yeah.
But I think I pretty much finished it right before Noam asked.
Okay, cool. If there's anything else you want to add there, Tadas, then feel free, of course. Otherwise, I see that Perry raised his hand, so I suppose that now we can pass it on to Perry.
Well, I had the same impressions that Noam had, because I've done development, and I've worked with GitHub before. I'm familiar with it, and he's right in the sense that issues are tracked on Git, and also Tadas is correct that Git is mostly focused on version control and merging different sets of codes into a common set. However, Git, the level of ease of use of Git or GitHub is way, way above where we want to be as a group. It needs to be far simpler. And then, of course, it needs ultimately to be on the blockchain. What I'm seeing here, presented here, in theory, is like a fractal orgasm. It's everything that we've been asking for, that we've been wanting, on a diagram. Now it's just a diagram, and I don't know how far along you are, Tadas, on this, but here what I'm seeing something that's going to help us define our mission, and you said this, our values. It can help us figure out which initiatives to start. In other words, what actual projects to embark on, and then once we've embarked on those projects, and we have some kind of minimal viable product, MVP, what issues does that MVP have? What new features do we want to add to it? What bugs are there? And then once it's a stable product, a stable version, what's the maintenance? It's just the general maintenance operations. So this is to me like the holy grail of where we're going. And I don't know how possible it is to effectively do, but it's right on. It feels right on to me. So I don't know if is this something, Tadas, that you expect you can do within a year?
I don't currently have plans for this. I only came up with this like last week, and so far it's just a concept. I'm also working on Firmament, so it's not like obvious to me yet how much I should focus on this, on development of this. But yeah, I think it's worth focusing on this, at least at this point.
It seems like to me this is the replacement for well, this is really what we should be doing. We should be decentralizing all of these important decisions. It's not easy. It's not easy to do, but ultimately I think that's where all of this is headed. To be fair, and then we debate between where to put our tokens on this node, on this tree. I think we can do, based on what I've seen so far, just a few minutes, my first impression, I feel like we can do much of this without actually having to code it to the blockchain. And I think it might be interesting to see if we can do it in another tool, whether it be a spreadsheet or a Notion page or whatever it is. We can create hierarchical trees in a number of ways. And we can focus on the process in a number of ways. So that might be an interesting step for this group, is to figure out if we can actually just do this without the technology, work out what works for us, and then that might clarify what needs to be actually coded. That might be helpful and serve as a test bed or a source of requirements for whoever's going to develop this. Yeah, wow, impressive to me. Super impressive.
Thanks, Perry. Appreciate it. Now, regarding Noam, and you say that projects track issues in Git. Do you see my screen? Do you mean something like this, like in GitHub?
I was busy sending you examples. You see? Yep, exactly. I just sent you an example of Linux Raspberry issues, but that's another project.
Yes, but it's actually, and this is a feature of GitHub. It's not a feature of actual Git.
Oh, it's only the Microsoft version that does this?
Yes, well, actually there are other, like GitLab. It's usually these web repositories where people push their commits. The same front ends for these repositories usually also has an integrated issue tracker.
I did notice that the Raspberry Pi was the example that I found was on GitHub, and that Torvalds Linux didn't have an issues thing. So that's interesting. So you're saying it's just GitHub, it's not generic to all Gits.
Yes, like it's not a Git function. It's not actually stored in like Git Tree, these issues.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Torvalds Linux. That's on GitHub, and it doesn't have issues. So even though it is on GitHub, so apparently adding an issues thing is it's an option, but it's probably easier to do it with all the instructions and procedures. Instead of reinventing the GitHub issues, we can just use them and work with them.
Yeah,
That
but then
might make more sense.
yeah, but then we wouldn't have this functionality to vote with respect, and it would, I think, hard to integrate.
You can build the respect on top of the GitHub tree. So let's say you didn't have issues, but you still had all the branches. You still need to vote on respect or on. I think they're using Gitcoin in order to fund development. So Gitcoin is a form of respect that's actually tradable. It's not just non-transferable. So we might want to take a look at how Gitcoin already works and see what we can borrow from them and what we can improve on them instead of reinventing it.
Well, as I understand Gitcoin, I think it's a bit different. But yeah, sure, it makes sense to look for what's already done. But currently, I don't see like something that would be easy to integrate. It seems simpler to me to write a simple smart contract and simple front end.
Well, the question is, can we write a smart contract that assigns Gitcoin?
So I would say have we zoom out because Jorge, Eric, and Perry all have their hands raised, and I think we're getting kind of the details here. But
okay, back off.
Very interesting thoughts, Noam, and thanks for getting right in there with a bunch of thoughtful suggestions. Vlad said interesting. He had to think about it. He had to go, but he said Tadas for the win. So yeah, thanks, Tadas. I have a bunch of thoughts about this too. I'm really excited about this flex trees. But Jorge and Eric have had their hands up for a while, so let's go with Jorge first, and then Eric after that. Jorge.
Hello. Yeah, I want to say that not only for issue tracking, but also, for example, for project management. Usually in project management, you have a project which has some task, and each task has a subset of tasks. And in order to do all this project management in a decentralized way, at each step, for each task, you will have to decide which of the set of subtasks is the priority. And if this is to be decentralized, then the community will have to vote for the highest priority task within the bigger task that conforms the bigger project. And that can become a mess, as we can see in all these discussions that we have had in this fractal and in every fractal, in every decentralized community. So we can apply this algorithm also for project management, and it makes really efficient the actual decision of where to focus attention next. And aside that, I've been offering my help to be part of the working groups of the tech working group of the Eden community, the Eden on EOS. So if you, Tadas, send me the link to your tree, I can explain that in the next meeting, the next Eden on EOS meeting of the tech working group. So maybe they are interested in doing an implementation, given that these working groups will be working under this Fractali protocol, and probably also with non-transferable tokens. But even so, I don't see why the restriction of doing it with non-transferable tokens. It could be perfectly done with EOS or any transferable token, and in that case, the biggest weight will be on the hands of those who have the biggest chunk of money, but still it's valid. So, so that's my input. So we could probably get it implemented from the EOS, hidden on EOS community, and then bring it to this fractal.
Yes, well, if with transferable token, I think you would need some kind of staking mechanism, because you could like vote off an issue and then transfer your tokens to someone else. So like you having some token is not that meaningful if it's transferable. But if adding staking, yeah, you're right. Although in my opinion, respect is more this non-transferable respect, and this for this use case is more fitting in my opinion. But that's a larger topic.
Or you could do it with a non-transferable token, even with non-staking, provided that the smart contract is permanently scanning the whole blockchain and measuring actual changes in the balances. That sounds interesting.
Yep. Well, it would be a bit expensive to do it, just scanning, but yeah, good idea.
Excellent. Yeah, very inspiring thoughts and discussions so far. Eric's had his hand up for a while, so if Jorge or Tadas, any further comments there, thank you for sharing. I suppose we can pass on to Eric now.
One of the biggest challenges, even in things like international corporations, which have different divisions and business units, is understanding what happened and why it happened. Usually there's this big disconnect in communications as organizations try to work together. So the ability to actually make results apparent to everywhere, but not only results, but why they happen or how those decisions reached, can be very valuable. Most of the program and management tools like Agile scrums and things like that focus on the task, like the burn rate for the development, which is all very valuable too, but I haven't seen any focus on the people who provided real value. It's only, we did this is how it worked, this is how we progressed, this is how we burned our resources, here's our projected resources, all very valuable stuff from a program management point of view. For those that don't know, I have a background as a government program manager, so that kind of things. But I think the idea of actually not only keeping the results when they happen and getting that information out to everybody so everybody's on the same page, but why those happened and when is very valuable. But I think adding the people part of it, who was valuable and when and why, I think is phenomenally valuable.
Eric,
I think the problem
all my projects had people as resources in them, at least the important ones. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not viewed as value. They're just viewed as, here's a resource. Nobody says this person had value. They just have names. This person was in charge of that. Here's what's done. And then it's a separate mechanism, this difference in what's getting done to try and track the value of those people. They're disconnected. So I think connecting them is really, really valuable. And yeah, I don't think Git or anything I've seen has a way of doing that. So good job on the thought process. I'm a fan.
Thanks.
I still don't know how we create the trees though. That's the whole process of how you go through that as a group and say, let's build the tree and then let's do it. That's another important challenge, but I like it.
Yeah, we would have to build a front end to do all of that. Yeah, and every node will have an author. So yeah, you would be able to see like who contributed what and how much and so on. And And some reward systems could hook up to that and do rewards based on that.
Yeah, and the value, not just who contributed it and how much, but the value of that contribution versus everything else. Rather than having a separate mechanism to do that, where you look at it after the fact and try and figure that out, when that's viewed when small groups who don't look at the whole thing, they just look at, oh, I'm in this division, this person works for me, so Rosmari's doing a great job, so I'll reward her based on what I think, based on that, disconnected from all the actual projects. The balance card is an interesting thing for anyone who hasn't seen that. They try to do key performance metrics in terms of how valuable the outcome is toward getting their strategy. But that's an interesting model to say, how do you do the key performance indicators and track those through areas of revenue, growth, operations, and customer. It's a good model to look at to get some ideas, but even the balanced scorecard doesn't reward or figure out what the reward or of the people in the process. It just looks like what was done and the outcomes. So they're all missing that key element you're talking about.
Very interesting. Thank you, Eyeke and Tadas, for all the thoughts. I'd be curious if you want to share more there. I saw Space Wrangler Joe wrote that we have been having issues with fractalgram voting, and he thinks we should focus on fixing/adjusting existing systems to work better and more consistently before we move on to other systems for solutions to governance. I'd be interested, Joe, if you want to maybe raise your hand and elaborate on that. I see Perry has his hand up too, and I have some thoughts here. It looks like the albedo is shining brightly on Tadas right now. His screen is quite bright. And then Tadas shared that, but there's a plethora of issues, and how do we decide what to focus on first? So perhaps the respect trees can be a way to do this. Looking forward to seeing your response there, Joe. And yeah, if anybody else has any other thoughts, Lisa, Duane, Rosmari, or anybody else who's spoken already, then please feel free to share. I suppose maybe I'll go first before Perry, unless you want to go ahead first, Perry, then feel free. But otherwise, I know you shared some thoughts already, and I haven't really shared much, so I can go ahead, and then you can go after me, Perry. Sound good?
Yeah, go for it, Dan.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So
you have to be excited about this.
What's
this
that?
You have to be excited about this. This is a great development within your group here.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. I love it. There's a few different things I want to say. One, just a high-level overview, some of the things I'm really excited about. One, I love the fractal nature of it. It's like taking a fractal process and like helping us coordinate this. As you're saying, Perry, like there's a lot of things that this can solve, and a lot of things that I think that this could provide solutions for, things that we've been trying to figure out solutions for, and using a fractal process to do so. And perhaps it could be kind of a fractal game too. I spoke with Tadas about this, and we actually have a video coming out pretty soon, because Tadas shared the idea with me on, I think, Friday, and then we met on Sunday and we talked about it for maybe an hour or so. And so Tadas kind of gave me a high-level overview already, and then we discussed lots of different things. So I'm planning to release another episode of Defs, or discussing Eden Fractal stuff, and planning to launch it as a show more specifically focused on Eden Fractal stuff. But yeah, we went into a lot of details there, so I'll first just throw that out there that I shared a lot more thoughts there, as well as Tadas, and encourage everybody to listen to that or watch that, as well as we'll watch it because there's a bunch of visual stuff. And then also I encourage everybody to read Tadas's article in Notion closely, and I'll also cut this video and share it. I'm thinking maybe I'll put together a page like edencreators.com/respect trees or /trees, something like that. So I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm going to be working to help promote it and help us work with it as well as possible. So in addition to being fractal, which is great, it's also great that it's visual, and I think it helped us organize like a lot. I mean, maybe we'll see how it goes. I see the potential for it to help us organize greatly, and I think that it is like a powerful primitive, like Tadas had written, that can be used in all sorts of different ways. So previously, I think that's something we were lacking in a lot of our decision-making processes. Like, we have a limited amount of time and resources as a community. There's amazing people who do amazing things, but of course, like any community, we have a limited amount of time and resources that we can use to accomplish goals. And this is a way to put all time and resources all in one spot, kind of, and to help allocate the most important priorities with respect. I think there could also be one of the things I discussed with Tadas was potential collaborations or like synergies or integrations with the signals. So there could be different scores that can weigh it too, and all sorts of different ways, like Jorge mentioned, that could be with liquid tokens too, perhaps. So I think it could be a primitive that can be varied in many different ways, on the stuff that Tadas wrote in the article, stuff we talked about, even for other stuff too, like we're talking about the open mic night that Eric has been arranging and I'll be hosting next week. And we're talking about fractal DJ and all these different games. Like I think that it could be very powerful there. I'm still just kind of just getting my head around it. I see a lot of practical use cases in the near term for stuff like deciding on mission, deciding issues, but I think it could be a powerful primitive for many other kinds of games and helpful experiences and helpful tools as well. Maybe also like collaborative video creation and music creation, like Notion, website creation, something like that. I'm not totally sure how far we can go with it because all these things are kind of working together, but I see a lot of potential there. And there's also potential like the trees and the plants, and like that's a fractal thing. So we can tell great stories about it, kind of gamify it in ways, make great art. I was actually, while I was listening, I was going on Midjouney and making some art about trees and stuff like that, and just inspired by it. So I'm looking forward to sharing more and helping collaborate as well as I can with the respect trees. I think it might be possible to do it sooner without a front end. Like I know, for example, the Genesis Fractal before started using Hive, or even in general, they didn't have a direct integration with any of like the respect on Hive. They just voted and then it was accounted for in a spreadsheet. And so there are solutions where we could maybe like do some sort of pinning and just we have one that it's a pretty high trust group here with a small group, so we can just like confirm it manually each week perhaps and just say, okay, that's correct or something. And I don't know exactly, but there might be potential rather than having to build a full tool right away. But for sure, building in like an easily usable interface, that'd be awesome for our community and many more, I think. And yeah, I suppose that's kind of a summary of where I'm at with there. Again, I shared a lot more, that I'm going to be working to curate more about this, as well as this video and the other video I did, and looking forward to diving deeper. But yeah, I think it's a really powerful primitive. It's really interesting. So I'm very appreciative of Tadas for sharing this respect trees idea with us, and looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts about it. And it could be super, super cool. Anyway, I could probably say more, but maybe I'll end it there. I saw Lisa wrote, let's invite devs to be on teams to help when we start dev projects. Interesting idea as well. Would appreciate, Lisa, if you want to elaborate or share any thoughts about respect trees. But I see Perry still got his hand up. So with that, I think I'll pass it over to Perry.
Well, Dan, if you don't mind, could you put the issue tracker back on the screen that you had? You had for a moment while Noam was talking, I believe you had an issue tracker.
Do you mean the screenshot? That was Tadas who was screen sharing. I'm able to do it, but if Tadas wants to do it, but I'm also curious what you mean. Do you mean by the issue tracker? You mean like the basically like the tree view, the graphical view?
Not that one. It was the one of looked like GitHub.
Oh, okay.
GitHub issue tracker. Yeah,
Tadas had that up. I don't know exactly where that was. Tadas, can you hear Perry right now? Oh, it looks like Tadas is screen sharing now. And looks like he's pulling it up.
Not that one.
One moment.
Okay.
Here.
Yes, exactly that. Okay. So we're looking at GitHub. We're looking at the issue tracker of GitHub. GitHub, for those that don't know, GitHub is where most developers keep track of all their software, and they collaborate and they decide what actually gets put into the program. You can have many different developers developing the same thing or different things, and this is how they all decide how they get in and become one program. Now, what I want to bring up is it's kind of a statement, it's kind of a question. I'm kind of trying to exercise the design a little bit, stress test the design a little bit, learn a little bit about the design, and bring up the difference between a basic paradigm that occurs in websites across the internet. And the basic paradigm of most content management websites, like for example, WordPress and many others, and that one that this issue tracker employs, is either the use of a hierarchy, like categories and subcategories, which is represented by Tadas's tree, or or the use of tags, which is what we're seeing here with these colored tags, right? I can see diff medium, effort days, kind enhancement, need analysis, kind bug, all these different tags. Now those are different in the categories are in subcategories is a hierarchical model, and tags are just completely independent. One tag is totally independent from another, and you can tag any of the content. So my question for Tadas is, why is it necessary? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I just want to learn, I want to understand, and maybe this will help shape the design or confirm where you're at. Why is it necessary that we put it into categories and subcategories and not make it just tags? Because I can say that I'm pretty sure that if we just choose tags, it would be easier on the user for the users to use, and it would be easier for the developers to develop. But that's just kind of an open question that all of this has stimulated my curiosity.
Yeah, yeah, good question. I have thought about this in the past, like to use like in terms of, for example, how to organize my notes, to use tags or a file system or what. Yeah, so it's a good question, but yeah, right now I think I have an answer for why we need a tree like that, like I presented. Yeah, if you this is now I will be I'm showing a very common pattern that I see in GitHub, that even though it uses tags, or actually it calls them labels, as you can see, but even though it uses tags, inside these tagged issues, you commonly see subtasks. So even though they like have a list with tags, and the actual like model like it's still a nested tree structure kind of thing, because that's just how development and thought processes work. I think that tasks always have subtasks. You can always like the structured tasks into smaller tasks, and goals into smaller sub goals, and so on. So I think that's the answer would be that that's simply how we think, that this top-down process, we set a goal, a mission, and then we proceed from there to think about like what needs to be done to implement that, and then we go down.
Okay, so it sounds like that maybe both might be necessary or desirable in the end.
Right. Yes, right. And actually I do have tags in my system.
Okay.
Yeah, so right here you see tag question, or
okay.
or tag answer. Yeah, I think we are going to need an answer, because it's a single tree with which we would be trying to track both issues as well as goals, projects, and so on. So we probably will need some way to signal what kind of node each node is.
Okay, very good, very good, interesting. Thank you. That's what I've got. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so also a possible answer to Perry's question is that tags doesn't necessarily have don't necessarily have a hierarchical structure as a tree does. For example, as I said before, for project management, you have a task that has several subtasks, which you wouldn't have with simple tags. You do need a hierarchical structure if, for example, a certain thing has prerequisites. That said, I'm assuming, Tadas, that this is all in the public domain, right? So I could take your idea and present it in other places and build upon it, right?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
All I would like is retribution. That would be nice. But
Like monetary retribution?
no, not monetary. Just the if you copy it,
Retribution.
share original source, like that site, you know, that kind of thing.
Great, sure.
Tadas, I think it would be interesting if you explored, or any of us explored, what would be an existing tool that we could use that would allow us to exercise the process of this, that incorporated a hierarchical paradigm and a tag or label paradigm, and that we could figure out how we're using it, and that while we're doing that, you could be learning from that, and then also eventually at some point building on that. Getting those two things, getting us working in this way, I think would be a positive step, using an existing tool so that we don't have to actually wait for you to develop it to actually use it. GitHub, I think, is a little bit too advanced for everybody in this group, so I would not recommend GitHub unless there's some way we can get people signed up and using only the tracker and not get confused with version management and pull requests and all of that. That can get confusing for people. But just as simple as possible issue tracker that employs hierarchy and labels, or tasks and tags, whatever you want to call them. That I think would be quite useful.
I agree. Something you want to add here, Jorge?
Yeah, the thing that makes it hard to find a tool that adjusts exactly what Tadas is suggesting is for example, you can have several templates of trees in the C++ standard template, but these trees have a weight that is given by a non-transferable token that distributes. So it doesn't look too hard to implement, actually, but the neat thing will be to do it on a blockchain level.
Well, that's it, Jorge. You may have not been in the room today when I made this comment. I think you came afterwards, but what I've come to is I've come to the conclusion, and this is an open question, and we're all here to learn from each other. But my current thinking right now is that at this very early stage of governance and experimentation that we're all doing here, I think the focus on the process is the most important thing. Ultimately, we want it on the blockchain. We want it immutable, because that's the point. It becomes immutable, and ultimately, we want that. And I don't want to diminish that in any way whatsoever. But I also want to say that having to code everything before we actually exercise its usefulness is a huge cost to all of us. And it's a huge development impediment. And I think that we would benefit as developers, even the people that aren't coding, as people who are part of this organization developing these solutions, we would benefit hugely by focusing on the processes first, figure out what works with us as a group, and then allow the developers to come in and spend their valuable time, their precious time, the precious resources, because we have to compensate them to do this stuff. This isn't easy, we should be compensating them somehow or figuring out how to do that. Let them do that. Let them follow in after we figured out what our processes are. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me it makes sense that we primarily get our processes down, and as a group we focus on our processes. That's where I'm thinking right now. I'm curious to know how other people feel about that, but that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Perry. I have some thoughts about that. Those are great ideas, but I see Joe has some thoughts and raising his hand, and Tadas, Rosmari's also been sharing some comments about Notion and agreement there. So I see Tadas has his hands up. I suppose first I'll see if Tadas wants to respond to that directly, and then if not, then Joe, thanks for raising your hand. We're looking forward to hearing Joe's thoughts.
Yes, it's sensible. It sounds like a good approach what Perry is suggesting. But few things. One is that I think these governance processes that we are experiencing, where success and the results of these experiments are connected with the whole user experience thing. And so if we have app which is specifically built for our use case, is likely to provide a much better user experience. And so I'm thinking that we might have a kind of result where people, for example, are not active because it's too hard to use, too cumbersome, and so on. So, but I don't know, maybe it is possible where it would be easy enough to use while using existing tools. But the main question here is like, how do you connect existing respect distribution to these existing tools? Right now, the only straightforward way I see is that someone would fill in that manually or somewhat manually somehow. And yeah, for me, it seems like it's just easier to code everything in, and the smart contract part should not be very hard to do. Yeah, but I'm open to exploring this idea of using existing tools to experiment before actually writing code.
Great. Thank you, Tadas. And Perry clapping. Cool to see. Pass on to Joe now. I see Jorge's got his mic off and he looks very thoughtful, so maybe after Joe, Jorge can go if he wants. But first we'll pass on to Joe.
Hey, okay, great. Yeah, and I know Perry says the Holy Grail, and I don't want to preclude Tadas' thing at all. But we in our breakout room had talked about how fractalgram isn't working. Vlad is the only one who can trigger it, other than you, Dan. So if that isn't happening, then that doesn't work. And that seems to be the major linchpin to all this right now, is the fractalgram thing. Like, that's how we get this done. So I really think we should focus on getting that figured out, where it's either automatic, it's set so that on the days of the meetings, it just launches. Maybe there's respect tokens for every person who joins. That's the first thing we do, is we go over it and look, this is how you vote. This is the thing. And they get a bunch of respect, and everyone there that helps them learn does respect, because I mean, that's the whole key to this stuff, governance, right? Is voting. So being able to vote easily and, just making it a seamless, easy thing new people can do, to me, is the most important thing. And I almost feel like, we should get that done before we even move on to anything else. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, and I'm sorry to jump in like this, but he's right too. and I had the same thoughts. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. that's our process. Our processes aren't currently working right now, and that's okay. I mean, we're all patient, and nothing's perfect, but we need to get our processes working smoothly, whatever we're using, whether it's completely manual and we're not using any blockchain based tools, or we're using complete. You're exactly right. The focus on the fundamentals is key. So that's a reason in my mind to either do exactly what you say, finish those projects or finish those features and get those things running smoothly, or just use a manual process that we can all walk through reliably and easily, and anybody can learn. And there's no mysteries behind how to use it. So I think we need to we're in kind of a middle space right now, and I think we need to do one or the other. And I think we're almost there with what we've got so far. Like, for example, the fractalgram, we have to figure out how to get that thing initiated. But yeah, I think everybody's right in this case. So that was the point that I wanted to bring up. But thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. That's an important nuance, it's an important point.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and thanks, Perry. I see Tadas and Eric have their hands up, but I'll also briefly respond to a couple points there first. I know Joe's also been working with the, I think, Tree of Water and Power, so maybe there could be some collaborations, although I appreciate Joe's also focus on the practical and pragmatic aspects to make sure that our house is in order before we are, focusing on too many different things. A couple points of clarification. Fractalgram isn't really having the issue. I mean, Fractalgram is the app that you use to interact with it. And at some point, we should probably just combine it all into one app so it's not confusing people. But the Fractalgram, there's a couple of little issues here and there with Fractalgram where it doesn't always work perfectly. But generally speaking, the issue we had today, that was just, that was the web app, the Fractal web app. And specifically that the set the start election button wasn't started. I think everybody here probably knows that, or mostly knows that by now.
There is an issue because we were not getting the error message.
You weren't getting the error message? Yeah,
the error message flashes for a few seconds behind the wallet. So by the time you get back to the browser that showed the error message, it's already flashed away. And if you didn't guess it ahead of time, and if you didn't know you needed to look for it, you wouldn't even know that it didn't get through. So that is an issue with Fractalgram.
Okay,
well, the rest of what you're saying was true, but except for the fact that we also have an issue with Fractalgram. That needs to be fixed. It's not a big deal, but you want to fix it before you start training people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, Noam, for the additional feedback. I'll pass it on to Vlad, because I don't think that is an issue with Fractalgram still. I think that's still a web app issue, because Fractalgram is exporting it to the web app just fine, I'm pretty sure. So in the future, I'm going to set a reminder to initiate that. And Vlad is also working on the next version of the app. I think he's planning to have it done within 3 months. That will have it all automated. He was planning to do a proposal for the ENF, and he's working on that, but I think that in the meantime, he received some funding from another source to work on that, and he's planning on having it complete in the next 3 months where anybody can call it rather than just a few admins. And then in addition, we'll also increase the training and tutorials and so forth. But thanks for that additional feedback, and I'll add that. And then, I just wanted to add, I do think that we can be multi-threaded. We have a lot of great builders here, so we don't all have to focus on the same thing, and we can do several different things at once. But anyway, Tadas has his hand up, Eric has hands up, Perry has his hands up too. I was thinking we could wrap it up early because I have some stuff to do later today, but I'm happy to stay around for longer to hear everybody's thoughts. And I still do have some thoughts inspired by Perry's last comment about like next steps to get it rolling perhaps. And Noam also made a very interesting comment in the chat as well. So we'll pass it on to Tadas, and then we'll hear from Eric and Perry, and I'll speak. And if anybody else wants to share thoughts, then feel free to let us know as well. And at the latest, we'll wrap it up in about 28 minutes or so, but maybe we'll wrap it up sooner as well. Happy to hear more thoughts. Tadas?
Sounds good, then. I will have to leave soon too. But the discussion that was just that we were just having, Noam's thoughts and Joe. I think you are actually proving my point that that respect tree is needed. So for one thing, the issue that we saw with that Noam is talking about is it's not a fractalgram app issue, it's an issue of a separate app to which fractalgram is exporting a link. And so if we had respect tree, we would have a place to put this issue in, and we would put it under that front-end app which is having this problem. So it would at least help clear up the misconception. Another thing is what Joe was saying. So Joe, I don't know if you are aware, but Vlad is actually building an alternative for fractalgram. If Vlad and Matthias we are building this, and if they are successful, fractalgram might not even be needed anymore. So that's again, if we would have a respect tree, we would see that there are actually two nodes behind the same solution. And this is like an important question. Do we focus on fixing issues with fractalgram app, or do we focus on helping Vlad with his solution? And respect tree would help us like decide on that and see clearly like these are two alternatives. And maybe we wouldn't have these discussions. And also last week we were discussing cagendas process. It has a lot of issues too. So for me, it isn't obvious that fractalgram is like that it should be our biggest priority. And maybe it is, but that's what respect tree would help us to decide. So yeah, I don't think it's obvious what are our most fundamental issues that we should prioritize, and that's why I think respect tree's kind of solution might be the sensible priority.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Tadas. There's some great comments in the chat. Lisa saying that she supports Tadas building what and as many things he's willing to do. I encourage people to support him with scoping and ideas and requests from time to time. I encourage as well. And yeah, it'd be interesting to dive into Noam's thoughts in response to Perry, but I see Perry has a hands up and I still haven't shared my thoughts there too. So perhaps we'll pass it to Eric now, and then Perry afterwards, or maybe I'll jump in at some point soon, but first we'll pass it to Eric.
So focus is very important. You have to focus on the most important thing first, but you have to be very careful when it's expressed in the term of, well, hold everything else because we have to work on this first. I'm a huge fan of saying, what are we going to focus on? Let's put the majority of effort there. But you can really kill things if you say no innovation, don't listen to anybody else, because you constantly have to be spending some small portion of your time saying, where do we go next? And in this case, also, they're not mutually exclusive to say we have to do all one or all the others, because there's nothing that says the things we're doing, even in fractalgram, may have some relevance of embedding some of the things we're talking about with respect trees in there. So one thing we do not do very well is holistically look at everything we're doing and prioritize it. We tend to say, here's an issue, what does everybody think about that? Here's an issue, what do we think about that? Which isn't bad. We just need to realize that where we want to get to is this constant flow of things coming in and out, and being able to say, I want to put my efforts into this. And there's the other fact that there's two things. There's what somebody wants to do and what we as a group want to support. So if somebody says, well, I want to work on doing an animated series on capturing what they're doing, and if people go, oh, we don't want to support that, but one person does, and if we can help them, great, maybe 2 or 3 people want to do. So you also have to give people freedom to do what's in their hearts and what they're motivated and passionate to do. So you want to make sure not to kill that. And if somebody wants to go off on respect trees, whether that's before or not, we can say, what do we as a group want to support? How do we support that person as a person, individual person, individually, and where do we put? So, there's always going to be people that want to focus on different things. We're never going to come to agreement that this is our only priority. You're just going to have a majority of us saying we really like the focus on here, and that's where we want to provide our group resources. But individually, we can do everything we want. We need to make sure that we don't squash creativity and things, because some of these things we're doing aren't going to work, and some can work really big. So you don't know. We're not that good at judges to say we can predict the future. So I just want to put a caution to say, yeah, decide where we want to focus on and talk about that, but don't squash other things or fail to look at the fact that some of those may have value right now. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. Thank you. And I think that's one of the great things about playing multiple games, so to speak. Like the fact that we have the fractal social game, Eden plus fractal process, where everybody is assessing in the breakout rooms how much people are helping, and people can just come and help out however they want. That's a great way to foster individual contributions and creativity by however people see fit, really. Also, at the same time, people have mentioned, well, how can I help? And it'd be great if there was a place where there's like a list of issues and tasks I could do to help. And that could also help us grow more effectively if the community comes to consensus more effectively about that. So I agree with what you're saying. I think that having a variety of games is a good way to do that. There's an excellent article by Dan Larimer, and also some other great information that I shared in that edencreators.com/games article. I think Dan Larimer's article was called Decentralizing Governance with Games, which isn't directly related, but the idea is generally you play more games and then you can get more like coverage of people's interest and to help the community as much as possible. So Perry has his hands up, but I figure maybe first it makes more sense to me to go and just briefly respond to what Perry said, because I still haven't yet. And I think that was a really interesting comment. Also, Noam shared a bunch of great comments. I encourage everybody to, if you want to share those in a more persistent manner, share them in the Telegram live chat as well. I'm planning to remind people more to do that, and we had a discussion about that in the past, where the Zoom chat, they often get lost, and there's been so many great comments here in the Zoom chat. Yeah, especially this last one from Noam about how fractalgrams and new tools are issues that can solve the same problem, and they might have great use cases together, especially when streamlining things that are currently with manual spreadsheets. And that kind of also goes towards something that that Tadas was saying and that Perry was saying, and that we kind of experimented with Signals. So with Signals, we did do it with just Google Document, and I worked a lot with Noam on that, also with Rosmari to get it set up in some basic manner. And I've also been looking a lot of ways to attach it to the blockchain too. So I presented a little bit about substreams and Firehose, the technologies from the Graph and from Pinax and from Streaming Fast teams, the EOS Nation team, that can enable like data from the blockchain to go directly to a Google Doc or an app or something like that. I'm still in communication with the team to figure out how to work on that, because I feel like we might be able to get that done fairly soon. And then in the meantime, I think that we can start using the tools. Like blockchains are super helpful in many ways, but one of the things that they optimize for is like low trust environments where people don't know each other, and environments where a lot of coordination is needed. But we kind of have a bit of that like taken care of just because we all know each other well, and so we could do things like just kind of more manually. And if we have a couple balances and checks, then we can make sure that we're all on the same page and that nobody's making a mistake or anything like that, and be able to test a lot of these things. And that can help us be more. That can help instruct the development going forward. And I think that we should. I think that's an excellent recommendation from Perry. There's a few tools I'm going to be looking into. Rosemary mentioned Notion before. Notion does have dependencies and several different tools like that that could achieve some of the hierarchical things going on with here. I'm not totally sure if it could achieve everything, but it could achieve some of it. There's also a tool called Whimsical and Mirror Boards. Patrick makes mind maps with tools, with an HTML tool. I think Josh used a diagram tool. So, and I'm working with Roman Research and Eden Research. There are lots of different tools that I'm going to be looking into and thinking about this, and encourage people to think about best ways to get it done both manually and then in the longer term with blockchain. But yeah, I wanted to touch upon those, and yeah, encourage. I see Noam just copied one of those messages. So thanks, Noam, for sharing that in the Telegram live chat. If anybody else wants to share anything else here, I encourage you to do so people can see it later. But with that, I'll pass it on to Perry. And then if anybody has any other comments, then feel free to raise your hand. If not, we can also start to wrap it up pretty soon as well. Perry?
Great meeting, Dan. Great meeting all, Tadas. Great presentation. I just want to repeat what Noam said earlier, which was that the solution for at least fractalgram was to remind the host to initiate the election. And it reminds me of how we are, as humans, we are engaging in ceremonies. So you could also call them processes, but old processes are kind of like ceremonies, like religious ceremonies or ancient ceremonies or secret society ceremonies, fraternal ceremonies. They're just all ceremonies and different things. And we have a ceremony at the end of our meetings. We make goofy hand signs and say goodbye, right? So I'm going to go beyond the initial suggestion and suggest that we indicate an emoji to remind Dan to start the election. So when we all just fire off the exploding, I don't know what the hell that thing is, the confetti gun, the confetti exploder. When everybody fires off the confetti exploder, that's Dan's cue to not forget the election.
Well,
That's
there
That's it.
there we go. I'm looking forward to some confetti. If you feel inspired to do so, thanks, Perry. And it makes sense. Interesting thoughts as well about the power of tradition and all that. And I suppose we can move on to tradition, as you said, pretty soon with the hats and the hand gestures and so forth. We've been doing peace signs lately, as well as some other hearts and handshakes across the screen or whatever. I did set an alarm for 16:10 UTC every Friday, or not every Friday, every Wednesday to do this. So that'll give me time after the presentation where I can do it there, and then 2 hours would give us more than enough time. So even without the confetti, then I should certainly remember to do so. I remember when people first started asking me to hit the screen share button, there was a couple times I forgot to do that, and a couple other things that I just have reminders going on my alarms so to make sure that I get it done. So now that is in there as well. So confetti or not, there should be a start elect button that is pushed, and so the election should be smoother going forward. And that's at least one issue on the respect tree. The respect tree in our minds, I guess, because it's not out there yet, and that we can consider resolved, or at least on the way towards being resolved. So thank you, Perry and Noam, for the inspiration and feedback there.
Perry, after this meeting is done, get on with me on something. I got some stories to tell you about ceremonies.
Okay, Noam, it's story time with Noam. Okay, all right.
And I don't think everybody else wants to hear it, so let's just do it.
Okay, maybe we can hang on this room for a while. I don't know. No, Dan's got to go.
Yeah,
He's got.
No, I got to get going pretty soon, but I can leave the room open though. Happy to leave it open after we wrap it up in the video if anyone wants to talk longer. And if story time with Noam sounds great and magical, maybe even turn that into a series if you want to record, and I'd be happy to listen to it later sometime. I saw Rosmari was putting the confetti out as well. So yeah, can look. I'll leave the room open. And is any of you have any other comments you want to share before we wrap up this episode? Looks like Noam's ready with a frisbee on his head, or a frisbee, whatever you call it. Is everybody ready for wrapping up Eden Fractal meeting number 60? Great to see Perry and Duane. Thanks for turning the camera on with your great hats. Not a bot. Waves. Hope you've been getting some great waves surfing lately, Duane. Or if not, as much this week as you want. Hopefully you'll get them soon. Got Lisa here, Eric and Rosmari. If you want to say hello with the camera, then feel free. I'd love to see you. Or if you want to listen, all good either way. Oh, Duane is looking closely at all of us right now with a magnifying glass. He wants to see everybody's beautiful face up as close as possible. All right. I'd say we can wrap it up with a 3, 2, 1, go Eden Fractal, and maybe we'll do the peace sign as we do it. How's that sound? Maybe 2 peace signs. Peace and love.
The vibrating peace sign.
Vibrating peace signs with the energy of the universe. There we go. Looks very cool, especially with your camera flutter thing too. All right. Great to see you, Lisa. I hope that you and your, I guess that's a raccoon on your hat. I don't know what it is. It's a cool looking badger, maybe. It's a badger on your hat. Cool to see. I love the hat. And is everybody ready to wrap it up? Shall we go 3? 3, 2, 1, 0. Go eat it, fractal, and go kiss, and peace and love to everybody. Thanks so much, everybody, for the great meeting. See you next week, and go respect trees too. Thanks, huge thanks to Tadas. He just had to go, but thanks everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
There's Lisa.
There she is. All right, see you later, everybody.